it's like, trying to get people to spend money
Right.
for your show when the UFC is on 4 nights, every weekend.
Right.
It's like, do I pay $50 to go to a local show,
Right.
or do I pay $50 for the pay-per-view, go to the
Yeah.
bar? So the competition started,
Yeah.
getting really,
Well,
really tight, and then, and then you have other shows
right.
creeping into
Right.
Arizona, right? So now everybody's like, oh, you're the only game in town. I can do this.
Right.
But obviously, I don't think that worked because you don't see them in Arizona as much anymore. I can't remember the last time. Obviously,
Yeah.
pre-pandemic, you didn't really see a lot of MMA shows coming to Phoenix at all. Every
Well,
once in a blue.
when I sold Rage in the Cage in 2014, there was a period, there was quite a bit of shows that came to Arizona. But now we're 2020, and I believe, and I could be wrong, we're down to maybe one or two. But you're right, competition from other shows, the UFC, started to kind of make it difficult for us to get a nice fight card.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, a lot of the MMA schools and whatever other martial arts schools, a lot of people, for whatever reason, didn't really, I would say, like me as a person, I think. I wasn't sure. But one thing that I learned about business is, don't worry about me as a person. You should look at the numbers, look at the facts. Facts don't lie. That means I'm giving you a platform, I'm giving you opportunity to fight, opportunity for you to get concerts, not concerts, sponsors, opportunity for your schools to grow, your instructors, and et cetera, and et cetera. And it's kind of weird because I was kind of outspoken, and they judged me on that and forgot about all the other great things they were benefiting from. And look at today. They can't, before COVID, the shows were shrinking in
Mm-hmm.
terms of attendance and promoters.
Mm-hmm.
Well, after COVID, we don't know when that's going to be, but I don't know. I don't know if the local shows are coming back.
No, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough because one, how many people are going to want to be in a crowd? You see in sports today, everything is, just people
Yeah,
on TV fighting
yeah,
or, playing basketball, wrestling, whatever, with no fans. So that you don't have a TV deal,
Right.
local,
yeah,
they don't have a TV deal. So it's going to be interesting how,
yeah.
after, the post-COVID
Right.
era of MMA and, just for the UFC in general. I know they got their TV deals, but,
Right.
the purses aren't as big. How do you give somebody a big payday when, it's based on pay-per-view buys, but no gate, no merch, you know what I mean? So the game's going to change a little bit, I feel. So speaking of the UFC, right, they've tried coming, not to talk about them too much, but like when we talk about Arizona crowds, right, Rage in the Cage at its peak was pulling a very good crowd.
Remember the Glendale Arena?
Yeah, Glendale Arena was a big show, right?
10, 12,000 people.
And you were you are the smaller guy, right? You're not the
Right.
big brand name UFC. UFC has come to Arizona a couple times. Why is it that everybody in Arizona loves the UFC, but nobody would ever, like, those fights they didn't do well in Arizona? You know what I mean? So was it because they weren't bringing the big fights because of the market, or was it, walk me through that a little bit, because everybody, Arizona loves the UFC.
This is just my opinion. It's a combination of many things. It could be the fight card, maybe they knowing that Arizona typically is not a strong entertainment state. It just really isn't.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at a lot of the concerts, the big names, they'll do a show on a Thursday
Right.
or a Wednesday, go to New York on Saturday because they know. So I was fortunate enough to have one of the biggest shows in the U.S. along with attendance. I believe I had the largest attendance in Northern America in history, the Glendale Arena. I did 6 shows. We were averaging over 10,000 people. And what was really crazy, I just want to bring this subject up in case we forget, because I know we're into a lot of things. Would you believe when the Boxing Commission took over MMA, ready for this? The judges they were using and the referees knew nothing about MMA.
So that brings up a good point. So now the Boxing Commission, they got their hands in it, right? Because everybody's got to get paid. So now they're putting, like you said, refs and judges in there that don't know what they're doing. Did they even think about asking you to say, hey, can you train our judges and refs on how to score it? Because obviously they're probably looking, because I've been to some of these fights and I've seen some of the results going, he shouldn't have won, because when you look at the takedowns and the counters and the knockdowns, right? So they were kind of scoring it like they would boxing, right? Like they didn't realize like sometimes being a guy on defense is actually scoring more points than the guy that's trying to throw haymakers missing, because he's countering, right? So countering, those are points, like when you counter, right? So they weren't including that a lot of the times in the scoring. So it almost like, do you feel that some of the fighters that were trying to get to the UFC and whatnot and maybe didn't make it because of their fight record, did they kind of get screwed over a little bit due to the fact of the judges and the refs' lack of knowledge on how to score?
It could be a little degree in that area. There was a few fighters that there were some decisions that we were a little surprised. Me especially being in the game way before they got involved, I was able to determine the difference. So in some cases, yes. The hard part for me was when I was promoting and having these officials, one, they were not trained. Two, there's no drug testing. You don't know if this referee, you don't know if this official's high on marijuana or whatever. Even today, 2020, these state officials do not take a drug test.
Really?
They do get testing now, though. But this is the problem. These officials, 99% of these guys have never trained on the ground, Muay Thai, nothing.
Yeah, they have no concept of it.
They can only pass a test.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a policeman with no common sense that with life experience culture, people, different cultures. So these officials, one, they were, back then they were not trained to be officials.
Right.
They never once asked me, no drug testing. And today, yes, they are tested more than ever.
Okay.
But why isn't the judges, and the referee, why aren't they having a drug test? Now you were talking about would it affect a fighter? Well, look at the UFC, the greatest show in the world, and you can hear Dana White and a few people upset, the fighters, about the decision. Well, I don't think they're drug test either, the referees or the officials.
Right.
I mean, how's that possible? How do you bypass that, knowing that's the most important job probably in the game?
Yeah, I mean, I can see that because, I mean, luckily, knock on wood, there haven't been any, that to my knowledge, any deaths in the ring, like, maybe some close calls, but, because the ref is the one that, he's the guy to be the one stopping it, so he's got to be alerted all the time. So I would assume that most of these refs and judges, they're not high or drunk, but, you never know, So let me ask you this. So outside of the boxing commission and all that, we'll get back to that. MMA, right? Your nickname was, in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you were the Deuce, right? Do you feel if you were 10 years younger when you got into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, right? How it blew up to what it was now in UFC, MMA, do you think if you were 10 years younger, you could have thrived and excelled in the MMA world, knowing what you know now? No, as a fighter. I want to get back to the fighter because, as you said, you picked it up very quickly. You were able to roll with some of the best, and taking that knowledge, that aggression and that fighter in you from football. Now you take it into the MMA world. You know how to grapple, but now if you actually train to do MMA, I'm saying right after college. So let's say if UFC existed, after college, and you were able to get into that right away, do you think, you could have hung with some of these guys, or been maybe one, contender in it?
Actually, as far as athleticism, explosion, power, gaminess, I would have destroyed everybody, I think. I got in the game in my mid-30s. I was drinking, partying, but as far as all that, those factors, I was gifted. I was a tremendous, gifted genetic freak. Yeah, I think I would have done extremely well. And again, if it wasn't for the entertainment world that I was part of, if I would have got in it, I would have, even in my 30s, I would have been top three without probably even trying. Even partying, drinking and stuff, I still think I would have probably beat them all up.
Mm-hmm.
And I probably would have competed at 155.
Okay, yeah.
And I walked around about 165 all the way up to about my mid 30s. But my strength level, my explosion, and etc. Especially back then, because a lot of people didn't know the ground. So I had a big head start on these guys, the MMA world. So it was a great time and period for a guy like me to be in it. Now, as time went on, the game kind of changed a little bit. You started to get a lot of freak athletes,
Oh yeah.
that were like me, but I was one of the early on ones.
Yeah, I was saying in the beginning.
Oh.
You know what I mean? Like,
Oh, yeah.
you know, well, you fast forward, you 35 years old, you know, trying to fight, you know, a 21-year-old that's an athlete that has the different kind of the updated training.
Yeah.
You see it now in the UFC. The older guy, like, you have a shelf life.
I felt personally, because I had my school up to 2 years ago, and I trained with a lot of UFC guys, all the way up to about 52 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to say names, but in my 40s, probably up to about 50, 51, I still felt that I can be in the game with these guys.
On the mat, I mean, but
no, I'm talking about overall. I used to train with these guys.
right, but you actually, like
Yeah,
Stru, like
we-
taking a shot right in
we
the
got
face,
down.
or you wearing a headgear.
Well, you wear headgear.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. You know, your body absorption.
Yes and no. I mean, head punches didn't really bother me because the way I was built in terms of. Only reason I was wearing headgear just for protection, but I still believe that through my 40s, I don't know. I just felt I trained with so many of these guys, and I felt. I hate to say this, but I felt like I was still dominating them all.
Okay.
But it is practice. I mean, you seen when I fought a guy who was a journeyman. He had headgear. I did not have any headgear.
Oh, you whooped him.
I mean,
He had a lot of black and blues on.
well, we had kind of like a deal going on. I knew him. It was like a gentleman fight, but it was real.
No, I mean,
But I told him that we're not going to go through the ground, and this knucklehead started taking me down. I don't know if you remember this. I started mounting him really fast. I let him up. I mounted him. I could have pounded his head in.
Yeah.
I was just hitting his body like this.
Yeah.
So it was more like a boxing match. But I will say this: I was a little surprised how I had an adrenaline dump
Oh yeah.
right out of the gate.
Oh yeah.
But I hit this guy, and I think I hit pretty hard for MMA.
I mean, I saw the guy's face after wearing a headgear. This guy's face was blown up with headgear on.
Yeah, I mean, I personally believe that the first maybe 2 or 3 punches right out of the gate, when I hit him, it would have been over.
Yeah.
Because I hit him so many times clean that I kept saying, why is he still
Well,
standing?
he's wearing headgear.
I was
So,
like-
so it's funny because, that's why I asked how you think you would do, because obviously that adrenaline, right? That's right there. For a lot of people, they get that rush, but then that's where they get gassed out, right? They blow up, right? I
You're
guess
right.
the term's blowing up because it's like they're just all that energy, and once it settles down, now you're huffing and puffing. If you don't get that quick knockout, you know what I mean? So you see a lot of
Good
people in
point.
the cage that go in there, oh man, this guy's a contender, and then all of a sudden they go, this guy's a joke because he got knocked out in 30 seconds.
Right.
You don't know until you get in that cage,
Yeah.
until you ever, if a fighter wants to talk and critique it, I'm okay with that because they've been there.
Yeah.
But like when you see a lot of fans go, oh, that guy's garbage. Until you walk in that
Yeah.
cage and you don't understand what it's like to
Sure.
walk in there, that door closing, 10,000
Yeah.
people screaming your name,
Yeah.
cheering, and it's like, that can get
Yeah.
intimidating, that
Yeah.
adrenaline rush. And if you don't know how to, that's not something that's easy to teach.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you have to be, I think, very mentally
Yeah.
prepared for getting in the cage, right? You can be physically ready to go. I can run 10
Yeah.
miles. I can, you get the, all the weights and everything.
Yeah.
But when you get into that, and they close that gate, and this is you and him, and that adrenaline, and you can't control it. Ooh,
Oh, I know.
That can be real
I
dangerous.
experienced that, and you know what's interesting? You said that. Beside, look at the fights today.
Mhm.
There's no crowd. Now watch this. A lot of these wins and losses could have been different if there was a crowd.
100%.
And that's something that people have to understand. For example, I'm making this up. I've seen guys that are tremendous in the classroom, not very good during a show. Now, those same guys that are great in the classroom can probably do real well with these shows right now.
Yeah. Because there's no intimidation. It's
Right.
walking in there is exactly like being in class.
Right,
It's you, your opponent, the ref, the cage,
right.
and a couple people from your trainers. That's it.
Yeah.
There's no there's the pressure of the hype and the walk down and the music and the mental with everybody, the cameras all over you, so. And I see it. I mean, every sport is like that. Look at baseball,
Yeah.
right? Now think about baseball, right? You got a game, it's 2-1, bottom of the ninth.
Right.
There's no crowd, so the crowd isn't standing up and cheering and
Right.
so the psychology is, I just gotta just strike this guy out. You know what I mean? Like I'm not thinking about the crowd or the slip up. There's nothing psychological going through my head except for it's me and that guy. There's no other things going on. So.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I've seen it a million times. That's why I watched these fights recently with no crowd. I always say to myself, God, I wonder how we would do with the crowd. But anyways, it is what it is.
Cool. Let's wrap this up and come back and we'll finish up with our last segment.
Can I ask you a question, Tim, before we
Of
go?
course.
And I wanted to bring this up. I wanted to talk about the celebration in the cage and how I got it back.
Okay.
What happened was when I sold Rage in the Cage, I asked this group that I would help them a little bit because I wanted to make sure I got paid. And I got paid a lump sum up front. And then I watched them doing these shows all over the state, and I was a little nervous. So I'm thinking, man, am I going to get paid? Well, sure enough, they defaulted. So of course, they get on social media and et cetera and badmouth me how I screwed them over. Well, how can I screw them over? You had a lawyer, you signed a contract.
Yeah.
So why are you telling people that I screwed you over and I lied?
Yeah, so walk through that. Right? Let's dive into that. I know we're gonna take a little break, but let's dive into that. So they signed a contract. Okay, they signed a contract to buy it, and in that contract was X, Y, Z details. They start doing shows thinking like, oh, I'm gonna become a millionaire. They probably thought like they got a deal and they're screwing you over, right? And then they realized,
got it first.
First show. Oh, maybe it was good, right? Everybody's first show is good.
Well, their first show was good.
Yeah.
I seen their numbers.
Yeah. Now the second show comes. Oh, we're riding that high. Uh-oh. 'Cause I've been in that promoting world, right? Where my first show, I killed it. I'm like, this is right. I'm gonna become a millionaire, right? And then all of a sudden, the second show comes like, oh shoot, like my friends didn't show up, like it was like a dud, right? So, so is that what happened? Was that their their show started drifting because it was, was it because they were doing too many, or was it bad promoting, or was it like they thought the name was gonna sell itself?
I don't really know. I wouldn't have done that. Why fix it if it ain't broken? We're doing that celebrity. You did one show celebrity. You smashed it. I was there. Why would you go to Tucson, Flagstaff, and all these different cities all over the place? So make a long story short, they defaulted and they badmouthed me all over the internet. And the internet people didn't know the true facts about what happened. Oh, Roland screwed someone over.
Well, which is true, and then maybe through the years of raising the cage, they hear the name like, oh yeah, we know Roland, and they
This is what I tell people all the time. Unless you've been put in a promoter position, shut your fucking mouth because you have no idea what it's like. Like I don't know what it's like to do your promotions, and I'm not gonna belittle, talk bad about you. I don't make decisions. Sometimes you make hard decisions and you lose friends and et cetera and et cetera. It is what it is. And I feel good about it. Now, would I change things now that I'm older? Only a few little things in terms of my approach. Or a few little things here and there. But overall, I would have done it again, but almost the same way I did it. We had John Petrilli, Rick Reyes, and myself. Us three, we were together for almost 20 years. And everybody else that badmouthed me and etc. I get it. Everybody can talk bad, but flip the coin around and think about all the positive things. It's way more positive than negative.
I think about that, right? When you say, way more, positive than negative, you think about all those schools that, throughout the years that showed up to Raising the Cage, had their fighters in there, their fighters got to the next level. Because of your show.
Yeah.
If your show didn't exist, and if let's say you were charging them, oh, you want to be on my show? You got to pay a fee for your school to be on my show, and then now you want your fighter on there, you got to sell tickets. You know what I mean? So I don't know the whole back end, but I mean every school had to sell tickets, obviously. But you got to do your part. Like, all right, I'm giving you a show, but nobody knows you, so everybody's got to do your part, right? And you get a piece of it, right? but you're not doing this for free. You know what I'm saying? Like,
That's
you're
what
running a
they-
business.
that's what they done.
You're running a business, right? So